Hola, all. Welcome to Soul Mechanics. Welcome back to the laboratory and our course on operative alchemy. My apologies for the last video that you probably couldn't hear what I was saying, and so I'm going to go ahead with the beautiful new telephone that I found, Liara Mark II. We're going to remake that video at a later point and give it better content. Because I mean, generally it's just kind of on the fly. I wanted to test and see if the telephone that I had was actually capable of making decent videos, and it was proven to be severely ineffective. So, anyways, this video is a response directly to a few members who have asked questions in response to the original video, Welcome to the Toolbox. They asked about, well, most of the questions, I mean, it wasn't a lot of people, there's just a handful of people, but for the most part, most of the questions were regarding whether or not we could determine the long-term effects of antidepressants and other such psych meds, and then there were a few questions about other similar drugs that are usually prescribed along with antidepressants that are not necessarily connected really are associated with antidepressants, other than the fact that they tend to be the diagnoses involved in determining whether or not somebody should be on antidepressant psych meds are usually associated with these particular drugs. And honestly, these drugs, for the most part, if somebody needs to be on narcotics, these drugs should take care of the symptoms for the most part. And again, very honestly, I don't mean to be a dick about it, but if you're suffering from something such as depression, especially clinical depression as a diagnosis, treating the symptoms should be enough to beat the condition. And we'll speak to that here. Anyways, the long-term effects, as it turns out from studies that have been done, and of course from our own investigation into these psych meds, we know people, for example, my mom has been on them for a while. I've tested them out. There was a particular drug that I took. I cannot remember the name of it at the moment, but started with a P. It was a certain type of antidepressant that is Paxil. Thank you. Paxil is the drug that I was on. I don't remember the actual name of the drug itself, but Paxil is the name given to it by whomever's selling it, the provider. And it caused for me to sleepwalk, it caused for me to lose memory, it caused for me to just, it broke the barrier between, it broke the sleep paralysis barrier whilst dreaming, to prevent the body from acting out dream sequences, which is a key effect that comes into play with creating some of the drugs that I have personally worked on in the past, especially the drug that I referred to, Scratch and or Skip, to induce memory loss. That's a key component. But other than that, and of course, not many people are going to find positive uses for that sort of substance, so it's not necessarily to be regarded as positive in and of itself, and it's other than that, it's useless. These drugs are, I need to state first and foremost, these drugs are experimental, all of them. Not a single one of these drugs, these psych meds, these antidepressants as they're titled, the long-term effects are not actually known. From what we can tell, the long-term effects can include, but are not limited to, of course, addiction, first and foremost. That's going to come with any substance that you use, if you use it, without, out of moderation, if you overuse it, or, overdose on it, or you take it long-term. Anything that you use long-term, you're going to, eventually become addicted to. Your body, your brain will become addicted to it. This is because it's all a matter of training. It's all a matter of conditioning. See, but it's going to be, the implications of addiction in and of itself are going to have to be determined by the individual. As, I mean, technically you could say that you as a human being are addicted to oxygen. Addictions make up a huge portion of our individual personalities. So, I mean, it's all a matter of habit. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is a habit. We can't disclude addiction, but addiction in and of itself is always going to be held with a negative connotation. We tend to look down on it because addiction is usually used, the word itself, the value of addiction is usually used to denote something that is harmful or something that is causing, a negative influence. So, most people don't even understand that addiction just means, generally speaking, a habit, something that you tend to do, that you are used to, and that you feel somehow disabled without. It's not necessarily, regarding narcotics. It's generally speaking, you're addicted to the foods you eat. So, as I said, the implications of addiction itself are going to have to be determined by the individual, but for the most part, we tend to hold it in a negative light, and the connotations therein are generally bad. Quotations. Weight gain, and I think they said 65%. Under the statistics that we found so far, weight gain is a long-term effect, which again, that's to be determined by the individual, whether that's good or bad. I mean, you might need to gain weight. I need to gain weight. It's proving to be nearly impossible for me. My metabolism is in fact increasing as I move along. The faster I move, the more energy I burn, and I'm not going to stop. So I really don't know how I would if I intended to. So that's a problem for me, but I'm not going to take antidepressants for that because they are dangerous. Personal note. Emotional numbing and inability to feel up. This is because the addictive influence of these drugs, these are generally, for the most part, they're a crutch that you're leaning on, that the utilization of these drugs is forcing your brain to produce serotonin, I believe, mainly. And what's happening in the brain is that your brain's being pushed by these drugs to lean toward an imbalance, and that's the addiction aspect. It's always going to imply imbalance. That's the implication that's attached to the actual value of addiction. What do they call it? I can't even remember my own terms, but the aspects attached to the value of addiction are generally going to be negative insofar as regards, lifestyle and living habits, and how it affects people around you, and generally how it affects everything involved. But the actual value of addiction itself, the implication coming from that is going to be imbalance, and so that's going to hold a negative connotation no matter what. That's balance is what you're seeking, that's what you're trying to get at. But the thing of it is that if you suffer from what's diagnosed as a clinical depression, this is not something, for most people, for all intents and purposes, this is not something that is like a permanent situation that's happening. The brain is not programmed, it's not wired innately to work that way. You are not going to be, except for perhaps a very small percentage, it would be extremely rare and unique, a condition to have the brain malfunctioning in that way, causing for you to be clinically depressed permanently. That's by and large highly unlikely. The factor that is in play is that you are going to have experienced something, maybe traumas or maybe just generally negative things, had a string of bad days, and for some people it's going to happen faster than others. This addiction aspect can kick in faster, quicker, or take longer for differing people, depending on your mentality, depending on your physiology. Addiction can kick in quicker or lesser. Addiction can not even kick in at all. Some people, are immune to addiction, really, for the most part. But, your brain is going to have gotten addicted at some point to depression, to negativity, to feeling down. It's going to have, At some point, you are going to have begun causing for your brain to reward you with dopamine for being negative. And I know that this is difficult to understand. A lot of people don't want to hear it. Most people are going to shut it out entirely because they are in fact addicted to depression, and they don't want to understand that. It's as simple as that. Your brain's going to shut out certain things. This is cognitive dissonance. That's the enemy we're fighting. That's the problem that we're combating. But in regards to these antidepressants, they are just not recommended. Baseline or bottom line, they're not recommended. Abilify is one that I've heard questions about, and lamotrigine is one. Those two that I gotten specific questions about. Lamotrigine is not an antidepressant. Lamotrigine is actually an anticonvulsant initially, but that's really not even what it really is. It's very similar to another drug called gabapentin that I actually use and that my mom uses. My mom also uses Abilify and has used it for a long time, so we have her as an example of the long-term effects of it. I can tell you that Abilify, for the most part, is prescribed to enhance other antidepressants. So if you're on Abilify, chances are you're already on another antidepressant. If you're on those two together, in my opinion, my personal opinion, you've already crossed the line. Again, I'm not a pharmacological expert, but I would have to recommend against that and highly encourage you to test out some of the natural resources that we have available. We do know now, the medical community has, before I continue, Abilify for the most part is safe. It seems it's safe to use, but it's going to cause those same effects. It's going to prevent you from being able to create your own happiness, essentially. And they know that. The people who give this to you, they know that. It's not, they intend for that to be the case. They want you dependent on these things. Now, for example, even in my mom's case, I can say that when she got to the point where she was unable to be happy on her own without this drug, natural resources came into play to assist her. As I said, these drugs are all experimental, and we do not know. It hasn't been long. These drugs haven't been on the market long enough for us to actually know the lasting effects. But we do know the lasting effects of natural resources that have been in play forever and ever and ever. Specifically speaking to, for example, as I was saying, the medical community has released information regarding the potential for psilocybin to have positive effects upon clinical depression, and it does. Spotters have known this forever. That's one of the primary things that it's used for, is to clear up. It's all of these are used to clear up these core problems and to free you from that, and to give you the ability to create your own happiness, to afford you that ability, to enhance your ability to do that, to give you your superpowers, essentially. So we know psilocybin mushrooms, even in one dose, can have long-term, lasting, positive effects upon, can cure clinical depression. It can change your outlook. It can change your mentality. All of this is a matter of training. As I said, you're going to have become addicted to depression. Your body's going to lean towards depression as a crutch. Your brain is going to lean towards depression as a crutch. This is a matter of how your value system is constructed. Ironically, your value system being the perpetual self, being the lasting self that survives bodily death, is more quickly and easily altered. That's something that you can change on a snap. You can, on the spot, you can alter your value system permanently if you want to. Well, not permanently, but until you decide to change it again. You can lock it into place, while the chemistry happening in your brain, that is lasting insofar as concerns your ephemeral self, your bodily life. It's very difficult to alter your brain chemistry once it's become addicted to something like this. It can be very difficult to alter it, but the value system is what's going to cause for it to differ. So again, it's a matter of training. As I was speaking to gabapentin and lamotrigine, these drugs are actually what we'd have to call neural enhancers for the most part. They initially prescribed them for anti-seizure medication, anticonvulsant, but it turns out that they're good for pretty much anything. I mean, they can help with anxiety, they can help with depression, they can help with pain relief. They're generally an all-rounder, and what they do is lubricate the neurons in the brain. It causes for the neurons in the brain to fire faster, which causes for the brain to respond to the value system faster, which allows for you to make on-the-spot decisions about how you're intending to feel. That's generally what they do. They speed up, they speed up the brain, but again, the brain can become dependent on them. We don't want to overuse them, because then you're going to get slowed down, you're going to get held back, you can shut down if you run out. That's the withdrawal symptoms of these drugs, is you're going to just generally be shut down, hampered. So again, it's not recommended. They're safe for use. I use gabapentin. It's safe for use. It's okay. From what I can tell, it has very little lasting effects other than that withdrawal potential. But I would have to recommend against them. Again, we have available as it stands, and if we continue to win the battle for it, we have substances such as Mitragyna speciosa available, kratom, on the market. People call it kratom. It's actually properly pronounced kratom in Thai, but kratom is very exceptionally safe. It has no negative effects that we can tell, except that for the potential for addiction, of course, and withdrawal symptoms are simple, like grogginess and inability to move fast. It's a hampering. Again, it's the same kind of thing as the gabapentin, only it's not as bad. Kratom's potential for positive lasting effects on our culture is extreme. It's just that this herb, I don't, I hate to be such a powerful proponent of it and to keep boosting it and to keep what's it called, to keep I can't remember what it's called, but what it's called when people promote their shit. But again, essentially keep promoting it the way that I do, but that's what it is. It's all-rounder. This herb is good for anything, and it can help with depression. It can give you a boost. It can give you a physiological brain chemistry boost that allows for you to utilize this boost of energy that you get. And again, in larger doses, it can also act as a depressant and, work with anxieties and such, and ease anxieties. It can help with pain. It can help with just about anything. But insofar as depression is concerned, it can give you that initial boost, just like a caffeine boost, only better, smoother, larger, faster. And it, again, it's good for the digestive system. It's generally good for the body. The only negative potential of this is addiction in large doses, and again, the withdrawal factor is minimal. It's just it's about as addictive as peanut butter, let's put it that way. And it has just enormous positive effects. That boost that you get from using it allows for you to make use of your time in a better fashion. What you want to do if you're suffering from depression is start forcing yourself to feel better. Take advantage of the boost you get. I would recommend trying out kratom. That would be my go-to. Get some kratom, try it out, see if you don't feel better with that boost, and then make use of that boost to get more active, whatever you happen to be doing. If you go to work, if you deal with social media, whatever it is that you're working with, just be more excellent at it. Try to do the best you can and just keep doing that. Every time that you feel bad, every time that you feel down, stop. Turn it around and say, I'm going to be excellent, I'm going to do the best I can, regardless of how you feel about it. And that bodily action, taking action in that regard, is going to build the habit, and your brain is going to begin to respond. And every time that you stop it, you get frustrated, you get angry, you get depressed, and you stop it, turn it around, and do better. Your brain is going to start rewarding you with those dopamine hits for doing it. You're going to begin rewarding yourself just for being good, just for doing good at being human, just for being well. And you got it. That's the primary training. That's the bottom line training of all soul mechanics, of that status initiative, of every fucking thing that we're doing. That's the bottom line. Be excellent. Just stop it when you're being negative, turn it around, and do the best you can in whatever regard you can, and taking that action with your body is going to begin informing your brain that that's your intention. Once that intention is in play, once your brain knows that your intention is to do well and to blow off negativity, then it's going to start rewarding you for doing that. And then the more you do it, the bigger the reward, the bigger the boost, until you start moving really fast and things start, you'll be able to stop on a dime and turn things around. You'll be able to alter those effects. You'll be able to overcome any negativities, any challenges that are presented. You'll be able to overcome with grace and speed and sharpness and excellence. And that's the training that you want to do. That's essentially what you're trying to do now. Now, alchemy, again, is a method by which to sort of impose scenarios upon yourself to I say inject experiences into your life, a condensed processing, process condensed experiences faster, utilizing chemistry to induce experiential factors that will allow for you to manipulate your value system in just such a way as to overcome difficulties faster, to have a more empathetic value system, to become a more understanding creature, basically. And the better your comprehension, the faster you move, the smoother things are, the easier life gets, the more you're capable of being excellent, the more your brain will reward you for doing it. Plain and simple. That's the training that we're in here for. So that's what I have to say about clinical depression and about the lasting long-term effects of pharmaceutical antidepressants. Is how about just better safe than sorry and not find out at all? Because from what we can tell, certain people with certain genetic structures, such as my own, it's rare. This genetic disposition, I guess it seems as though it's rare, but for certain people who have certain genetic structures that are unique in just such a way, it causes sleepwalking, it causes memory loss, it causes you to act out, become enraged, it causes for you to lose control. It's just generally what we would have to consider negative influences upon yourself. Negative values come into play, negative implications. It's bad. It's just generally bad are the side effects of this. And we would have to think, it stands to reason, we should like to think that if for these certain genetic dispositions these side effects are transpiring, then chances are these side effects are just happening faster for these people. These side effects that happen to me, they're just happening faster because I'm moving faster. So we would have to think that the long-term lasting effects are likely to be those side effects. They're just not occurring as quickly. So eventually, if you keep taking them, you're going to start losing memory. You're going to start losing time. You're going to start becoming enraged, losing control. You're going to start sleepwalking. That, I would have to guess, that's going to be the long-term lasting effects eventually. That's what's going to happen. And it shouldn't be taken as coincidence that we have such an epidemic of Alzheimer's and dementia occurring. That's hitting the roof, going through the roof nowadays, just as we happen to be introducing these antidepressants to society, along with the media, presenting these social control factors, these social experimentation media. What do you call it? Kind of mind control factors that comes into play. The social programming combined with the antidepressants, which are connected. They are one and the same thing. They're part of the same program. And now we have an outbreak of dementia. We have an outbreak of people committing acts that just don't make any sense. Cops shooting people, unarmed people on the ground for no reason, and afterwards saying, why did you shoot him? And their answer is, I don't know. This is what's happening. You need to drop those fucking pharmaceuticals, basically, is what I'm saying. And get back to nature, develop a relationship with nature, start utilizing natural resources. And for anybody who's speaking out against that, I don't understand where you're coming from, because ultimately this is more productive for society. Baseline. It has a much more effective outcome. So I don't know who taught you to think that the pharmaceuticals are to be considered a recommendation or held in higher regard than natural resources, but you were taught wrong. you were conditioned to think incorrectly and you have a busted operating system. You're utilizing cognitive dissonance. Sorry, but you need to wake up. So that's that. If you're using antidepressants, basically I'll say that if you've been using them for a while and they seem to be working well for you and you're not having any problems, fine. If that's what you want to do, go ahead with them, but I would have to recommend taking a shot at utilizing these natural resources, making use of those, and see if they don't work out better, because I guarantee you they will work out better for you. You'll have much better results, and you'll be able to drop the pharmaceuticals and not have to worry about any long-term effects, period. So that's my take on that. Thank you for watching. Kila Salai, Terbiuni Siari Namaste.